Taxi Season 2, episodes 5 to 8 are pretty good. I'd say I rather enjoyed 3 of these episodes. One of them I didn't care for, but I wouldn't say I necessarily disliked. I just wasn't that bothered about it. So as always, I will go through each of the episodes in turn, share some thoughts and any room for improvements. But in general, I don't have any criticisms for any of these. As I said, I didn't love one of the episodes, but I just found it to be boring rather than anything badly wrong with it. So, Season 2, Episode 5, Wherefore Art Thou, Bobby, directed by the wonderful James Burrows. In fact, all 4 of these are directed by the wonderful James Burrows. We have a character introduced here called Stephen, played by Michael Horton, and he wants to be an actor, and he meets with Bobby, and at the same time, Bobby has just landed a commercial, which seems like something worth celebrating, but Bobby's not very happy about it, because it's not where he wants his career to be. And unfortunately for Bobby, Stephen just landed the role of Romeo in an off-Broadway production of Romeo and Juliet, of course. And I will say Bobby reacted quite well, actually. I expected him to have a much stronger reaction, and he tried to respond in a way that was respectful to Stephen and to not make it look like he was feeling very sore. Before we get to that point, though, we have some great comedy. Louie wants to be the one to tell Bobby about Stephen getting this gig, and everybody's wrestling Louie to stop him from doing this. It's very, very funny, and it seems like he's given up and he won't tell him, and then he makes a call to order a singing telegram. I would have liked to have seen how that played out, but nevertheless, we get a bit of suspense as we wait to find out how Bobby would react, and he made it seem like he was happy for Stephen, kind of. But he definitely isn't, because he decides he's quit acting. And then Stephen asks Bobby to read lines with him, obviously trying to encourage Bobby to continue acting and to make him realise that he does love this and he shouldn't give it up just because he's not where he wants to be. And he does this reading. And I will say the scene was maybe a little bit longer than it needed to be, but he does this great performance reading lines with Stephen, and everybody applauds just as Latka comes in. And Latka accepts the applause for himself, which I thought was quite fun. And I have to say, what Bobby said then I thought was quite moving, because I'm paraphrasing, I didn't write it down exactly, but he expressed his frustration that he's that good and still can't get a job. And that is always going to be irritating. Anybody who's good at their job, good at what they do, but they still can't get a job for whatever reason, so frustrating. Because what else can you do? Obviously there's always room for improvement, but it's not like he's not good at acting. It's presumably just the fact that he's not in front of the right person at the right time, and that's going to be really, really frustrating. But we managed to turn things around with a bit of comedy as he gives Louie a speech in response to Louie's mocking him that he's not going to quit acting and that he's actually going to use Louie as his inspiration. And it was a nice way to end things. So I thought Wherefore Art Thou, Bobby was a decent episode, really thoroughly enjoyable, and I imagine one to which a lot of people will be able to relate. Then we come to Season 2, Episode 6, The Lighter Side of Angela Matusa, and this is one that I didn't like. I don't care about it. Angela is... well, she's looking a little different. She's played by Suzanne Kent, and she arrives at the garage, and she's lost a lot of weight, and she and Alex go to dinner, and it's very clear that she's very interested in him, and Alex panics as he doesn't know how to respond to this. Quite funny, but honestly, from that point on, I was kind of bored. Alex ends up walking out of the restaurant, and one of Angela's friends visits them and says that he's worried about Angela. She hasn't responded well to this, and Alex goes to visit her, and basically, I don't agree with that at all. She felt rejected, fair enough, but now Alex feels like it's his fault and his responsibility, and that means he's feeling guilty for saying he doesn't want to be in a relationship with her, and I don't think that that's fair. So I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the action in this, but it's also just very, very boring. And we end with Angela and Angela's friend realising they like each other, and that's basically all that happens. So I don't care for this episode. I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't like the treatment of Alex. Maybe Alex didn't feel like he had to go and help her, because Alex is genuinely a very good person. So maybe he just thought it was the right thing to do. But I'm still getting the message that Alex rejected her feelings which is always going to hurt. That's fair enough. I'm not saying she's not allowed to feel the way she did, but I get the impression Alex feels guilty, and he shouldn't. So, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's fine, I guess. Then we have season 2, episode 7, A Woman Between Friends, and Bobby and Tony see a woman. This is Janet, played by Constance Forthland, and they both argue about who's going to get to approach her and ask her out. And Bobby wins, so he goes over to her, and Tony's he's really irritated by this, that he's not getting a chance to date her. So he stands up and yells across the bar, "Hey lady," everything he says, "me too." Which I rather enjoyed quite a lot. I wasn't sure what was going to happen when he stood up. And I wasn't expecting those words, and I quite liked it. They're still arguing back at the garage, and Bobby ends up hitting himself, and Alex's facial expressions for this is great. On the one hand, he's perplexed, but at the same time, I get the sense of this is just another day. And I kind of can read both of those things into his response, which I think is probably pretty accurate. And Louie said something that I thought was quite interesting. He said, "That poor young girl torn between two losers." Now, I don't agree that he's calling them losers. I don't think that's acceptable. But that is a very good point. They're arguing about who gets to date her, but what about what she wants? Is this fair for her? Is it right that she's having to decide between two people and Louie says they're losers? Could she do better? Well, I think maybe if she's looking for somebody who isn't fighting among friends. But actually, she is clearly looking for somebody who's willing to fight their friends for her, because they meet with her. Alex comes along for moral support, but they end up making Alex tell her that she can't carry on dating both of them. And her response is, why? Clearly, well, either she can't see an issue with it, or she quite likes the fact that two friends are fighting over her, which is not an admirable look. And neither of them wants to see her again. They decide their friendship is more important. And she starts talking about how she wants to get back at them for this. Shut up, lady. I feel like she's not a very likable character, and both of them would be better off without her. She's not a good person. And if anybody should have backed down, yes, it should have been Bobby and Tony, but she should have realised the rift that she was causing between two friends, and she should have realised that she isn't worth it. So she's not a good person. But the episode itself was quite fun, and Tony standing up and shouting, "Hey lady!" I will always enjoy that bit. So A Woman Between Friends, definitely a decent episode. And then we come to season 2, episode 8, The Great Race. And there are some really great moments in this one. Bobby complains about money, and Louie is talking about how he would earn so much more if he were driving taxis. And Bobby said to him, man to man, one-on-one, you against Alex. Obviously the joke there is that it seemed like Bobby was going to say you against me. And again, Alex's face was absolutely brilliant. And they get into a bit of a kerfuffle. Louie bites Bobby's finger, and according to either Wikipedia or IMDb, I don't know where I got this note, but apparently Danny DeVito did break the skin when Louie bit Bobby's finger, and it did leave a scar, which is painful but interesting. And Alex isn't interested. He doesn't want to play this game, and Louie does the best chicken impersonation I have ever seen. The sound was brilliant, the physical comedy was fabulous, it was great, and Alex finally agrees. And the stakes are high, because if Louie has decided that if he wins, he gets to go on a date with Elaine, so he really wants to win. And we get to see a bunch of passengers with Alex. Suddenly Alex is not the best person. He kind of goes back and forth between a good person and somebody who is focused only on winning and not of the experience of his passengers, but it never lasts too long. He quickly realizes the error of his ways, which I think was a really good idea. Not so much the case for Louie. Louie ends up getting his license confiscated, but because he was using Tony's license, not a big deal for Louie. And then a woman carrying loads of bags of groceries gets into Alex's car, And it's really sweet. She's actually delivering groceries to all of her friends, and she's going all over to deliver them. Alex is so happy. He kisses her, and then she just pulls him down. This sweet older woman just pulls him down on top of her. It's an absolute joy. And then Louie gets a blind guy as his passenger, and Louie tells him the fare is however much, I can't remember, and it was significantly higher than what it was meant to be, because the blind guy said he'd been counting the clicks all of the way, and Louie isn't having this, so he says to him, I happen to be a very big muscular guy. To which the passenger replies, then you must be talking out of your belly button. Which I think is absolutely fabulous. And they get back to the garage, and Louie won. Louie had the highest fares. And then they realise they haven't counted tips. Alex thinks tips should count. Louie thinks they shouldn't, because needless to say, Louie's not the kind of driver who gets a lot of tips. And they turn to Latka, as Latka is quite impartial, and he's eating chicken, and it takes a while to get anywhere with Latka, and then finally they turn to him and say, do tips count? And he says, of course they do. And Alex wins, and Louie ends the episode by saying, I hope you all die. So some really great moments in those. If I were to rank them, of course the lighter side of Angela Matusa would be at the end. Then I'd have to say, I think The Great Race would be number 1, and then Wherefore Art Thou Bobby and A Woman Between Friends would be tied at number 2, and then the lighter side of Angela Matusa at the end. Personal highlights, quite a lot of the scenes in the cab in that last episode, and Tony standing up and yelling, hey lady, which I'd rather enjoyed. So 3 episodes, really great. 1, not necessarily bad, but I didn't enjoy it very much. But ultimately, I'd say this batch of Taxi episodes has been pretty decent.